How's it, South Africans and people of the world? Welcome back to another episode of Jaxx of All Trades, the podcast where we speak about everything from politics to pop culture, skills and people's stories, because every jote is a goat in the making.
Please stop sending me that Amahle-Jaxx video. I urge you, please stop sending it to me.
So now I have to start this episode with a shout out, but know that I'm not happy to do this. Because if winter has no haters, I am dead, right? So, but I have to do this. Winter 2025, my girl, you were decent. You were extremely decent. You weren't as cold as I thought you would be. You weren't as cold as winter 2023. You weren't as cold as winter 2013. Do you know why I remember those 2 years? Because it snowed in Johannesburg. I'll never forget. 2013, I'd only been a year in Johannesburg. 2023, I was just shocked. I was buying gross at Spa, snow starts falling from the sky, right? And so I was thinking about like how this winter wasn't as bad as the previous years, you know what I mean? Like we had, I think, we didn't have as many cold fronts, but then it got me thinking about global warming. Like, oh, the reason for this is probably global warming. We've seen, if anybody has watched a David Attenborough, Attenborough documentary in the last year or so, you know that the oceans are going through it. The world is getting hotter. The CO2 is all over the atmosphere. I'm not sure what happened to the ozone layer. I remember there was a big hole when I was in high school. Then some people say it repaired itself. But essentially, what I wanted to talk about today was green or greedy. That's the title of the episode, right? And essentially, we're kind of looking at sustainability. And we're looking at it from a brand perspective. And the question we're asking is, are companies really going green or are they just greenwashing for profit and PR? And the concept of greenwashing is essentially saying something is eco-friendly, but it really isn't. Or like a part of it is eco-friendly, not the entire product, but labeling it as eco-friendly. We also then have to ask ourselves the question, when something is green or eco-friendly, the process of it being made, was that eco-friendly? So you find that, a toothbrush or a tote bag or whatever the case may be, it's eco-friendly, but it took 5 times the amount of water to make. And so it isn't as, green as it was before. Hold on. My lip gloss is popping. My lip gloss is cool. My lips are dry. So yeah, that's essentially what I want to speak about today, is that are brands really going green or are they just, using this as a PR exercise to sell more, because green is all the rage, right? We have seen the sustainable packaging that draws you in to say that this is good for the earth. We've seen, all these different, from grocery stores to clothing brands to food products, every single thing is about going green, right? But how much of this is a reality, right? How much is it sustainable? Because another thing that we've seen is kind of this trend of like eco-influencers, right? Who are promoting these $billion, brands as green and friendly. But can you have $1 billion and be eco-friendly? Where does the profit, where's that line? Because for me, if I think about sustainability and being green, I think about no poverty. I think about every person going to, bed fed. I think about housing. I think about sustainable ways to give people power and electricity and clothing. That's kind of like sustainability to me, more than it is, excuse me, this toothbrush or, this straw. Do you remember the straw saga? They had us out there buying metal straws. We were drinking coffee from paper straws that made our coffee taste like paper mache. It was a mess, mate. And then we quickly realized that this thing is not going to be solved just because I'm carrying a straw in my bag, And so, yeah, that's kind of like, the conversation I want to get into this climate performance economy, right? This whole idea that we're saving the world, but are we really, And essentially, we know, a lot of brands over the years have gotten in a lot of trouble over greenwashing, right? So brands like H&M, Coca-Cola, Shell have all faced backlash for misleading sustainability claims. In South Africa, Woolworths and their campaign of Good Business Journey made headlines, but it also raised questions about access and pricing. And that's also another conversation, that green things You want to be sustainable. You really want to be, involved in the fight against climate change, but then you are simply outpriced from it. You know what I mean? And I just want to make sure I say that, Woolworths, I have no beef with you. Me, I love you. You clothe me. You see that gown that I be wearing on my TikToks? That's Woolworths. The food, my breakfast, that's always Woolworths. And Woolworths, please, if you're watching this, please can you bring back my wrap, the breakfast wrap? Like, you're killing me with the bagel. Okay, I don't understand bagels, guys. Why is there a hole in the middle of the sandwich? We know I love to go on a tangent, but I just want to say, I'm not shading Woolworths. I remember watching this campaign with Poppy, Poppy Sibia, what I believe the social anthropologist of our time, who essentially travels all around the continent, all around the world, kind of living sustainably. She takes buses, she takes taxis, she's on motorbikes. And in this process, she's discovering all these things about the continent, as well as, different places. So she did this campaign with Woolworths, which I thought was so effective, where Woolworths kind of showed us kind of like their progress or process rather of farming, right? And how they're reusing the water, the water that washes the grapes is then used to water this. And I thought it was a brilliant campaign, so I just want to say, Woolies, I love you. You have me in a chokehold. You have my entire salary for life. Keep making these products and keep putting them in the aisles for me to buy them and try them. But yeah, we're not speaking about Woolworths, we're speaking about greenwashing and how essentially it's also become a legal issue of sorts, right? So in 2023, the European Union proposed strict regulations against companies that use misleading environmental claims. In the United States, the FTC's green guides outline how companies can and can't market eco-claims, but enforcement is still very light. So essentially, we're sitting in a position where we're saying, we want transparency on how green you actually are. I want to understand all the things that you are doing to be green, right? A lot of us are very skeptical of green products for obvious reasons. We feel very overwhelmed. We want to help with the climate, but we don't really know how. There's TikTok videos that are constantly exposing how greenwashing, is very prevalent in the world. And you almost sit there and you're just like, how do I help? Where do I come in? I remember watching this video that honestly broke my heart, where I can't remember who the fashion brand was, but they essentially had this campaign where they said, come into our store, bring us your old clothes, and we will recycle them. And then a documentary kind of was done, and it was found that all these clothes that are being recycled are actually being dumped on oceans in Africa. Yeah. His eye just went up like, you kidding me? I'll be telling you the truth. I'll tell you a joke, but I'll never tell you a lie. So yeah, I remember watching this and being like, oh my God, this is such an issue. You know what I mean? And another fun fact for you, Africa, we pollute the least. We are entering all these green agreements, and yes, we should be entering all these green agreements, but we're not the biggest polluters. You've got your Indias, you've got your Chinas, your United States of America who are polluting, yet the sword almost falls on us to kind of clean up the world and be the ones who are responsible. So we sign, I can't remember what the South African one was, hopefully it'll come, Just Energy Agreement, where South Africa has now promised that it's going to invest more in green energy. And that's a great initiative. I don't take it away from it. But what is the cost of that, right? For us South Africans, it's now we're all expected to have solar panels, but half of us can't even afford the actual electricity that's made by coal that's found in this country. But I'm not trying to be controversial. So yeah, it's just kind of like you've got all these issues, and I think as a country and a continent, Africa and South Africa, I won't make the same mistakes again. If you watched the episode on, what was that episode called? Bricks, you'll know why I made that jokes. But yeah, we stand as African countries who are still very much behind in development. We're not the biggest manufacturers. So we're not necessarily the cause of the problem, yet the problem almost falls on us. We are experiencing global warming and climate change at an extremely rapid rate. So let's talk about the business of being green, right? And where that actually began. So the modern environmental branding movement grew in the late 1980s after, what's this thing called? Pressure for consumer watchdogs. Here's our fun fact for the day. Greenwashing was coined in 1986 by environmentalist Jane, I'm going to say Westerveld, because I'm South African, but it's probably Westerveld, in response to hotel asking guests to reuse tiles to save the planet while wasting resources elsewhere. So why does this whole greenwashing thing work? Like, why are all the companies doing it? It's because sustainability sells. It's the buzzword. All we speak about is development. All we speak about is living sustainably, going back to living to the earth. And I'm all about that. You know, I grew up drinking milk fresh from the cow's udder. And I made a TikTok the one time and I was drinking sorry, who's that? Joburg. Hey, Nkosiam. And this girl was like, please make sure you don't drink fresh milk. Girl, let me tell you something. I've been drinking fresh milk since I was born. Okay? I've been eating fresh eggs since I was born. But yeah, so a 2002 Nielsen study found that 66% of global consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable product, but they aren't always getting what is promised, right? So there's always this vague language that's being used: eco-friendly, natural, clean, conscious. There's false verification or misleading labels, highlighting how sustainability can at times be harmful. You know, for example, they'll say to you, you know, this bottle is recyclable, but it's actually only the bottle cap that's been recyclable. So you put it in your recycling bin, you think that, you know, it's something that should be, or rather that you're doing good, when in actual fact, you're not doing anything, right? And so it's become, for me, kind of like this catch-22, this situation where you're almost trying to help the world, but you really aren't doing what you need to be doing. What we actually should be doing is calling out these big brands that are the biggest polluters. Here's a hint. A lot of them make our favorite chocolates. A lot of them make our favorite cool drinks. I'm not going to be sued. I'll tell you that much. I'm not going to be sued. But it's the oaks that make the chocolates. It's the oaks that make the cool drinks, you know. Those are the companies that are the biggest polluters in this country. The use of plastic, not in this country, in this world, the use of plastic is obviously, you know, a big problem. You know, I think about when you're grocery shopping and you're just like, the chicken is in a plastic container and then it gets put in another plastic container and then it gets put in your plastic. Is there really a need for that? So it's almost like, instead of looking to us consumers to be the drivers of being eco-friendly and sustainable, what we should be actually doing is turning the lens on the big companies, these companies that are making billions and billions and billions of dollars in profits, but are expecting us, you know, to be the ones that are eco-friendly and green, right? So now let's bring it back home. Let's bring it back to Mzansi. For us, the reason it's very difficult to be eco-friendly or sustainable or conscious is because being eco-conscious means expensive. Sustainable products are often priced for a niche audience. You know, they are often, as I said earlier, higher priced, and we don't really know why they're higher priced. Obviously, we know plastic is cheaper, but you know, the means of production, I guess, for making these eco products, you know, are quite expensive because it's actually not the norm. It's become a niche, right? So it feels as if like you are being counted out of this eco-friendly conversation. And a lot of the issues, I think, also stem from the fact that, you know, when campaigns are done for being eco-friendly or sustainable, the townships are left out of it, you know, rural communities are left out of it. So the education that's meant to come from it is not there for the average person. And then I just want to speak about something that drives me insane. South Africans, I have to call you out, and the government. Enough with the littering. Enough. Why are you guys litter bugs? Do you guys not remember the campaign of the 2000s? And I need the government to run that one back, okay? We are not doing enough education on littering. And then number two, the government is not putting enough bins in and, oh, damn, just hit the mic again with my face. The government is not doing enough to educate, number one, and number two, to provide the things that would make our townships, our cities, Johannesburg city, you're filthy, my girl. And then I remember this one time I was riding in an Uber and I was on my way to Sunday roast because we don't drink and drive. And I was on my way to Sunday roast early in the morning. And I was just like, okay, and I was noticing how much, litter there was. And we used to throw Sunday roast predominantly in the CBD. And I remember looking at it and being like, why is there so much rubbish in the road? And then being like, oh, where are the rubbish bins actually? Right? And if you look around town, if you look around our suburbs, there are just no rubbish bins. But that doesn't mean after you're done eating your packet of chips that you should be throwing it out the window. That has never made sense to me. You're in the vehicle, okay? You have pockets, you have a bag. Keep the thing. Nothing drives me insane, guys. I once almost got beat up by a taxi driver. And this is when I learned I'm in Johannesburg. I saw a taxi driver throwing a can out. And I thought this is going to be my mission. And I'm going to tell this taxi driver off because littering sucks. And I hooted at him and then I drove past next to him and I was like, why did you do that? He answered me in Zulu, whatever. I was like, why did you throw that out? That's disgusting. Da 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 da. And boy, I almost got my ass whipped. Thank God I can push a whip. Because that man was going to catch me, okay? But my point is that it's even hard to call out littering because you're almost looked at as like this crazy person. I'll give you another example. I'm driving in the rural areas. I'm in the car with my mom, my brother, my cousin, right? And we're driving in the rural areas. And having grown up in the rural areas, I remember a very clean rural area. I don't recall what we did with our rubbish. I suspect we burnt it because yes, we did have, things from that are already packaged and purchased. Like nobody's trying to make beans. Okay, you just buy them from the shop for your chagalaga. But I remember driving and noticing how dirty even the rural areas have become. There's plastics and papers everywhere. And my cousin was eating in the car and I was driving and he threw the plastic, whatever he was eating, I think it was something, and he threw it out. And I stopped the car. And my mom was like, hey, Amahle. And I said, go fetch it. And I'm not reversing. Go fetch it. And my mom didn't understand why I was so upset. And I was like, when you grew up in the same area, did you grow up around plastic bags and all this other stuff? And I remember interrogating her, what did you guys do with your rubbish? And da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, it's so sad to see these beautiful, beautiful homelands of ours disintegrating. You take a walk by a river and you see just so much litter. And I just, for the life of me, cannot understand why we have become so disrespectful and so careless with our earth. And I'm speaking just as us, as South Africans, right? So yeah, I just feel like, I'm sorry, I lectured you for a second there because it's really, it's really a passion point for me. I remember someone on Twitter also asking what's one thing you would break up with a person? And another person said, if he litters. And I said, 100%. If you're a litter bug, no, you'll never be in my life. That's ill. But anyway, so in 2007, just an example in the South African context, Woolworths launched its Good Business Journey initiative, that one that I had mentioned earlier, which was aimed at addressing environmental, social, and ethical business practices. They said that they would focus on environmental commitments, right? And they aimed to halve the energy they had used by 2020 and transition into 100% clean energy by 2030. They also committed to having 100% recyclable packaging and zero waste landfill by 2022. So essentially they were promoting sustainable farming, animal welfare as well, et cetera, et cetera. So what have they achieved? So packaging, I know this feels like a Woolworths advert, but it's not. It's the only source that I could find that was relatable to some of us. So Woolworths reported that 92% of its private label packaging is now recyclable, edging closer to their goal of 100%. This was in 2023. The company also claims to have reduced energy intensity by square meter across its stores and has increased its use of renewable energy sources, particularly solar and major outlets. It's also made significant investments in water reuse, and this is what I was talking about when I gave that puppy example. So essentially, we do have one claim, or rather one company, that seems to, in South Africa, be pushing this eco-friendly situation, right? But there was also criticism that zero waste to landfill by 2022 2022, that goal appears to not have been fully met. And then there was also obviously the complaint that, sustainability remains premium. And that's why I'm saying it's so difficult to use Woolworths as an example, because not a lot of people can afford to shop at Woolworths. But if you know that there's certain items that are cheaper at Woolworths. I'm done advertising for them now. So yeah, let me just give you some example of how greenwashing can be really expensive. A biodegradable toothbrush is 50 Rand. A regular toothbrush is 24.99. The assumption is that sustainability is luxury. And I think more than anything, this is also when we need to call our government into action. You set all these goals for our country and how we're going to become sustainable, but who's actually looking out for that? Who's the watchdog, for these issues? But the government has taken a stance, as I've said. There's the Climate Change Act of 2024 that legally requires national and provincial governments, as well as municipalities, to develop climate response plans. It allows the government to set sector-specific emissions limits for major polluters. Like I said earlier on, also, we've entered the Just Energy Transition Plan, a strategy to reduce coal dependency while ensuring economic inclusion for affected workers and in communities. I'm not about this plan, to be honest with you. I'll keep it $1.50. We have coal. We make it. Let's use it. But you know what? That's a story for another day. So essentially, in South Africa and in the world in general, there's just a lack of environmental regulators and watchdog. We rely on companies to report themselves on greenwashing and eco-friendly situations. And South Africa has guidelines, but there's no law that has been set in place to ensure companies, people, and the country at large is remaining sustainable. So essentially, these policies that they keep creating feel like more of these ambitious projects than things that are realistic. There's an absence of just enforcement in civil society, and brands need to respond to reputational pressure now more than ever. Yeah, this episode for me just felt like it was actually rooted in littering more than anything. I've just been so upset at how I walk, and I won't tell you where because this is Mzansi, and you guys will kidnap me. I walk a lot, and I'll be walking and I'll just be seeing all this litter, and it just upsets me. I love David Attenborough. I think the world needs more people like David Attenborough who've moved from telling us about the planet to telling us how we as people are running the planet. And this might not be the most exciting, episode, but I think it's something that definitely needs to be said. I think in South Africa, we see the guys that help us recycle, right? These guys that come and dig through our rubbish every single day and they take it to these recycling bills. Why isn't there a government initiative to support these guys, right? They're essentially supporting our climate act, but there's no government, support. And it, for me, could also lead to employment. It could lead to more recycling. What's this called? I want to say plant. There it is. More recycling plants, which means more people get employed. There is a way to use sustainability and eco-friendly development to also improve the economy of this country, yet we are not doing that. So for me, it's just, this is a lecture. This is a lecture full of information. Stop littering. And to the brands, make eco-friendly things make the price point relatable and easy for us to access, because right now we expect it to be eco-friendly, but it's hard to, join the fight. And so after all that, once again, if greenwashing was a person, one more thing. And I'm going to shout out my friend because she's an environmental lawyer and she has created a brand where you can rent her clothes. Real Lifestyle. And essentially what she is trying to do is that, she's trying to say with fast fashion, the entire outfit I'm wearing today is fast fashion. God damn it. With fast fashion and all it produces and all, the dumping that it does, not only on the continent and how, it kind of creates this world where we live in excess, where we feel like, we have to always have a new outfit. You always have to have the newest clothes or whatever the case may be. Real Lifestyle, a brand owned by Mimi Mvagali, is essentially saying, come rent your clothes from me. I know Alex Beasley also has a rental company where essentially you rent a dress. You know, you've got a graduation, you've got a wedding, you've got this, you got that. You rent a dress, you know, and you don't have to spend all this money and you don't have to contribute to the issue that is fast fashion. Now, before you come for me, I understand the need for fast fashion. What it does or has done also is allowed people of all shapes and sizes to have access to clothing. So I understand, like, everything in the world is a catch-22. You know, for everything that's good, there's bad. For everything that's bad, there's good. Yin and yang. So yeah, I just wanted to shout out those two businesses out that are essentially doing what is probably very little in a South African context, but are pushing, you know, being environmentally conscious forward in that we don't always have to have new clothes. We have washing machines, guys. Use them. Repeat the outfit. Wear it again. Nobody cares. And those people who do care, they're sad inside. And they should probably watch my episode about if therapy is too much therapy, because they need therapy. And so, yeah, onto our fun segment. If greenwashing was a person, shops with a tote bag but fills it with fast fashion. Catch it? Thank you. Tells you they're a vegan for the planet but flies twice a month to fancy locations. Those private jets. Hey, billionaires. Those private jets. Are we coming for you? You know, I think the craziest thing in the world is that we have allowed the world to be ruled by this 1%. Like, we're not the 99. Imagine telling me I need to be eco-friendly, but you're flying on a private jet from San Francisco to LA. It's literally like a 20-minute flight. You can't take commercial. Because I was watching this TikTok and Ed Sheeran was saying he flies commercial. If he can, and which is almost always, he flies commercial. He's flied. Wow. Wow. He's flown on things like Ryanair with his family and stuff like that. And it also takes people with voices to kind of speak out on these things. So if greenwashing was a person, they bring a reusable cup to the office, but order takeout in plastic every day and never recycle the containers. So one of my favorite things is to recycle jars. There's a cupboard that's just full of jars. If I've bought like jalapenos, pepper juice, whatever, I don't throw those jars away. And then I put my tea bags in those. I don't buy plastic containers. I just put everything in beetroot jars. I don't care about the aesthetic. Also, I don't have the money to be buying plastics all the time. Cool. If greenwashing was a person, they brag about their bamboo toothbrush, but only because it came in a PR box from a brand they've never used since. Amahle. Feel like I'm calling myself out on that one. If greenwashing was a person, they start every sentence with, as a conscious consumer, but haven't checked what's in their face cream or who makes their shoes. And lastly, if greenwashing was a person, they scold people for plastic straws, but they buy bottled water by the case. And I think that's crazy because I'm a tap water girl. There was a time Joburg Water was doing funny things and I was buying bottled water and I was like, one, this is unsustainable because I can't afford this. And then number two, I just didn't feel right with all these 5 liters in my house. So I bought a jug with a filter. Now my water is just filtered in the jug. But yeah, so just to wrap up this episode, a perfect 32 minutes. Just to wrap up this episode, not all green is good. Some of it is just marketing and you have to wise up, okay? You have to read the labels, okay? Because now you're spending all this money thinking you're being conscious. That time, they're finishing you. Some of it is just marketing peg. Sustainability is too important to be left to vague packaging. You don't have to be perfect, but you should be informed. And that's exactly why I am here. Round of applause. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. I do my part. Cool. So my question, and before I ask it, please like, subscribe. Reminder. I'm so bad at YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. There it is. And set your reminders. Okay. You guys are still not watching my ads. I'm joking. So yeah, tell me before we end this episode, what's one green habit you've tried and you felt like, man, And yes, but this is a joke, this is a trap, this is a lie. Tell me everything about your thoughts on going green. And let's just have a fat chat about how we can do better for our climate and the world. And if Woolworths doesn't sponsor me after this, I give up. I'm joking. Yeah, guys, that's me.
Cool. So my question is, if we are talking about greenwashing, don't you think that the whole world then is greenwashing? Because if you think about it, the way in which we produce our energy, our electricity, our everything, the modern world is built around waste. Right?
Oh.
Then we walk around trying to feel better for ourselves, or oh no, we must go green, we must do that. And I like the point that you made about the people who are literally telling you, or you must go green, they're jumping in a private jet, and you know.
So Rapson, sorry, I keep forgetting to hook up the other mic so that they can actually, so you can hear them. I promise next episode I'll do it. But so Rapson is essentially saying, if there's a concept called greenwashing, then can't the whole world be accused of greenwashing? Because essentially what we're doing is that we're living in a world that packages everything. It's almost essentially, the point he's trying to drive is that it's actually impossible to not greenwash in the world that we live in today, right? So what was your question again?
So my question is that if we want to really go green, does that mean that we have to go against?
If we really want to go green, does that mean we have to go against capitalism, modernity? In a nutshell, I think so. And I think that's why a lot of people, are trying. Have you ever seen those people, when environmentalists are protesting and then they walk into a store and then they just break all the milk in the store and pour it out and like, oh, this is bad for the earth, or they throw fur on someone, or they throw paint on someone who's wearing fur, right? And it's supposed to essentially be a PR exercise to kind of shock people into remembering that, they should be living more eco-friendly and sustainable.
But in order for them to get there, they took a bus.
But in order for them to get there, they took a bus, they drove a car, they didn't ride cycle. So it's almost like it's hypocritical, right? Essentially, if you are saying that you are sustainable and going green, you should be walking everywhere. You won't catch me, not in Johannesburg. Whose laptop must be stolen? Could never be me. I'm sorry, I'm a hypocrite then. And I've always said this, guys. Me, I'm a hypocrite. Please don't ever hold me to some high standard. Please, I beg you. Essentially, it's almost like, and I think that's, I guess, what is so difficult about being eco-friendly, right? It's this idea of like, how can you actually do it? The way, like you said, the way we make our electricity, the products that we buy, the electricity that's in our houses, you can make the argument that like, oh, everyone should move to solar. But how's that solar made? It needs all these parts that are currently ripping the Democratic Republic of Congo apart, right? What did Apple say? They said they took out they took out our chargers, they took out giving us headphones in the name of sustainability. But I wish we really need a camera that's looking this way next time. You just went like, okay, I know you lying. But and they said this is all in the name of sustainability, right? But all you're doing is just making me go buy it. Right, so that you can make more profits. So it's such an interesting place to be in when we speak about sustainability. It's so difficult to kind of find where the sweet spot is for it, because we have and live in this modern world that encourages us. It's become so capitalistic. It encourages us to buy, right? I remember giving away half of my clothes and me saying like, I'm going to be more conscious about how I buy. Then a brand calls me and they say event. There I am, Santa, and saying new outfit. That's what I'm saying. I'm a hypocrite myself. Here I am telling you to repeat your outfits, but I do repeat outfits. Yeah, I don't care. But it's so hard in this world where everything is materialistic. Everything is about what you have, what you own. Like, why do I have a MacBook? It's because of the brand, the Apple Watch, the Apple TV. It's the brand. I'm in the matrix, essentially. And it's a red pill, blue pill kind of situation. Do I want to exit the matrix and have to live hard? Or do I just move and mosey along like everybody else? That's the big question. And it's such a difficult thing. And I hope nobody takes this episode and thinks like, oh, I'm judging you. No, I'm not. What I'm trying to say is that like, or rather, how do we find solutions for this problem that we're in? Because the earth is compromised. Hey, do you know you have 30 minutes? 30. And I just want to say this to end it off. Should the world end, I have no insane will to live. I want to go first. I remember before I suffered from extreme anxiety, I used to be able to watch The Walking Dead. Now I can't watch anything that's scary. And I used to watch The Walking Dead and think, the world is ended. There's no plugs. There's no TV. You guys are surviving with zombies. You have to move from house to house. Why do you have this insane will to live? Me, if the world is coming to an end, if they say the world is on fire, take me out first. I say this all the time. I don't want to be involved. Don't involve me. Like I want to be out. Let me see these heavens that they speak of. Let me make it there. But yeah, guys, please engage with me. How do we find a solve to this green issue that we have? How do we become more eco-friendly? In what little ways? Is it starting to grow our foods? I mean, we live in apartments. Is it having recycling bins? I know when I was visiting a friend of mine in the UK, they now literally have a separate bin for recycling and all of that. What can we do as the little people in the world, to help this earth of ours? But more than anything, how can we hold brands, government, and other stakeholders accountable? Billionaires, I'm coming for you. But yeah, guys, that's my episode. Always remember, every jote is a goat in the making. And most importantly, you are the jote. Thank you very much.